Tansa to tempted. Nanas one lista peptim going on. Please forgive me for my Greek. It's not the greatest. Yo yak ko to pit ki hill si last. Mr. Salvador in Sinia. Al Lehman in Dawi. Doreen Lehman in Dawi. So I just want to thank the pipe builders for their prayers. I want to thank the elders for being here, being in the territory of Sikopak. My dad tells me, he says, you got to say it right, because I was saying, Sikopak. I said, no, Pak. So, got to say that right. But anyways, what's happening right now is really exciting. There seems to be an uprising of treaty people. From Treaty 1 to 11, there are people that are rising up and saying, okay, enough's enough. We're gonna start standing up for our treaty rights. You're gonna hear us, and you're gonna hear us loud and proud. So I'm really excited about that. I was a band counselor on my nation for 4 years. Ran for chief, and I lost a close race. So I was really missing being part of the treaty talks. It's something that's been ingrained in me. My dad was chief for 34 years, so I lived that life of living with my dad, the politician, and then taking it up myself. So I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really excited to be doing this presentation for you. This presentation, by the way, is geared towards the new leadership. As a new leader myself back 4 years ago, something that I would hear quite often was, you young leaders, you new leaders, you don't know enough. You don't know enough about treaties. You have to learn about treaties. So when I was out of leadership, I was thinking to myself, how can I help out? I don't want to just walk away from this. This is too important. This is too important for me to just walk away. So I developed this presentation, and I'm hoping that you enjoy it. And basically what it is I want to take you back in time to 1876, to the time of Treaty 6, to the area, Fort Carleton, Fort Pitt, the things that were happening, the sights and sounds that were going on at that time, the talks that were happening. And I want to put faces to the names of the people that were there. There were some that were there, and I might not have pictures for them. And this is 1876, so we have a hard time getting pictures sometimes. So, without further ado, this is called Treaty 6 Playback. Okay? So welcome to Treaty 6 Playback. This presentation will take you back in time, 1876 Fort Carleton and Fort Pitt, during the time of Treaty 6 signings. It is important for all treaty people, First Nation and non-First Nation, to learn the origins of Treaty 6, educating ourselves, reinforcing a true and positive reconciliation process. If people don't know what treaty is, then reconciliation is lost. It's lost. People don't know what it really is. You can say treaty, but if you don't know what it is, how can you enforce it? How can you keep that spirit alive? Okay? Next slide. Treaty definition. So, I did this presentation in front of my family. And my son, he's 10 years old. He says, Dad, what's treaty? And I just stopped. And I paused for a while and thought, okay, I gotta take it right down to the basics. And explain what treaty is. So here's the dictionary definition of it. It's a noun. It's a formally concluded and ratified agreement between countries. So concluded means start to finish, started and finished. Ratified meaning all the parties signed on it, signed off. Okay? So I thank my son for getting me to step back a little bit to make sure that I do it right. Okay, next. Okay, I'm going to give you some profiles of the people at that time, the important people. Obviously, this is Chief Big Bear from Stay Musqueam. Chief Big Bear was born in 1825 near Jackford, Saskatchewan. That's, a ballpark figure. He died in 1888 on the Little Pine Reserve. He was powerful and a respected chief. He was one of the chiefs who initially didn't sign Treaty 6 in 1876. He wanted to form a united Indigenous alliance to negotiate better treaty terms. Very important to remember this, that he wanted to form an alliance. A man of great foresight who expressed his disapproval of treaty limitations and restrictions on the First Nations people. So he was seeing that there was too many limitations, there was too much dictating to our leaders, and not enough of the leaders saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is what we want. So he didn't like that. A peace-loving man, wrongfully jailed for his tribe's involvement in the Riel Rebellion. Now, if you've done any history on the Riel Rebellion, Big Bear was trying to maintain peace, and the war chiefs, they took over. They took over, and he had no more power. But he tried to maintain peace. So when all this stuff that happened with in Frog Lake, he tried to stop that. He actually went and hit people to try and save them. So what I would like to see, exoneration for Chief Palmaker. We should have exoneration for this man right here. A wonderful man. Next slide. This is Lieutenant Governor Alexander Morris. He was the main guy that was at the Fort Carlton and Fort Pitt Treaty 6 signings. He was the main guy. Okay? So he was the Lieutenant Governor of Manitoba. That's as far as Canada went back in that day, was Manitoba. Anything west of that was the Northwest Territories. Northwest Territories. So there was no Alberta, there was no BC, there was no Saskatchewan. So he was born in 1826 in Upper Canada. Upper Canada, I guess that would be Ontario or Quebec, somewhere around there. There was Upper and Lower Canada. Okay. He died in 1889 in Toronto, Canada. Like I said, he was Lieutenant Governor of Manitoba during Treaty 6 negotiations. He represented the Queen in negotiations of Treaties 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so he did a lot of negotiation for treaties. He worked closely with Sir John A. Macdonald. Okay? For many years, he worked closely with him. He was criticized by the Canadian Privy Council for giving up too much in the Treaty 6 negotiations. So he was criticized heavily for that by the Privy Council. That's Alexander Morris. Chief Chakabu. Those of you that speak Cree, I hope that I said that close to, because my dad, again, he kind of said, no, you're not saying it right. Because I was saying, Chakabu. And he said, no, Chakabu. Chief Star Blanket, that's how you say it in English. He was one of the main negotiators at Fort Carlton. He was born in 1816, he died in 1896. Back in the day, that's pretty old for someone to live. So he lived a long life. He was one of the two main chiefs to negotiate Treaty 6 at Fort Carlton. He was in favor of the treaty terms. Governor Morris commended him for his reasonableness during the negotiations. At a private dinner with Johnny MacDonald, he gave John's daughter the first part of his name, Star, Ataka. So he was pretty close with the government, and the government liked him quite a bit. We're going to talk a little bit more about the ones that were for treaty and the ones that weren't for treaty, and it's pretty interesting. Next slide. Poundmaker. Chief Poundmaker, born in 1842, died in 1886. Known to have spiritual abilities to lure buffalo into buffalo pounds by singing a special song to them. Yeah, I guess it was to the cow buffalo, the main cow buffalo. He would sing a song to that one, and she would follow him into the buffalo pound, and the rest would follow. And this is written history. It's not oral history, but this is a story about. And I said it was kind of like a Pied Piper, but I guess that's not a really good example. But he had these special powers. Poundmaker attended 1876 Fort Carlton Treaty 6 negotiations as a headman for his people. He openly opposed the Treaty 6 terms. A peace-loving man, unlike Big Bear, was imprisoned wrongfully for an incident at Fort Battleford. After 7 months at Stony Mountain Penitentiary, Poundmaker was released. However, he contracted a lung hemorrhage and would pass away in 1886 at the age of 44. So he died quite young. Next slide. Stoasis, Big Child. He was the number 2 chief at Fort Carlton. Born between 1796 and 1813. Year of his death is unknown. Again, the records back then were not kept as well. Like I said, one of the 2 main chiefs at Fort Carlton, negotiating Treaty 6. The disappearance of the buffalo led to Stoasis and other Cree chiefs to consider treaty with the Crown. Okay? Stoasis wanted education to be part of Treaty 6. Okay, keep that in mind. Stoasis wanted education to be part of Treaty 6. So that was part of his contribution to Treaty 6. We have education in Treaty 6. That's probably a big reason why it was Stoasis. Stoasis argued with disagreeing chiefs he argued in favor of Treaty 6, stating, the buffalo are gone and the Europeans are pushing west. If any of you have any better solutions, then show us. So it was almost like our people were backed into a corner now, and they had to figure something out. There was examples of our people starving to death, getting sick, these new sicknesses. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more as well. So he was thinking about that as well, looking ahead. So his name was Big Child, but he was kind of a small man compared to Atakakook. Atakakook was about 6'2", big man. Okay, next slide. Thank you. There's the profile on Northwest Mounted Police. Kind of interesting stuff here. The Northwest Mounted Police Force was formed in 1873. They would be an important factor in Treaty 6 negotiations. Treaty 6 was the first negotiation to have the Northwest Mounted Police involved. Interesting. Keep that in mind. Treaty 6 was the first time that Northwest Mounted Police were involved. Okay. Northwest Mounted Police Constable William Parker recorded the Treaty 6 negotiations at Fort Carlton, and Constable Samuel Steele recorded negotiations at Fort Pitt. So those two constables did some recording, writing things down. Okay. Northwest Mounted Police E Troop was assigned to Treaty 6 negotiations. Okay, next slide. Try to cruise through this as best I can. Northwest Mounted Police Force was formed in 1873. I think we went through a lot of this. Governor General Morse lobbied to have police in the Northwest Territory because of the law knives, they were called, the Americans. They were coming up and they were trading furs for bad whiskey, and they were killing off our Blackfoot brothers and sisters. It was not good. They had no respect for Blackfoot people, and the government of Canada caught wind of this, and they sent a Northwest Territories troop to confront these traders, and they pushed them back south of the border. There's the Cypress Hills incident, the Métis as well. Pardon me, my Métis brothers and sisters, but there was a forming of a government, a possible forming of a government. The Northwest Mounted Police were sent to check this out and see what was happening. And they spoke with Gabriel Dumont. And he said, no, we're not doing that. So, Treaty 6 was the first negotiation to have the Northwest Mounted Police involved. I believe I have all that. Okay, next slide. So, a lot of people, I actually heard this from a farmer that lives close to Beaver Lake. He was talking to my brother, and he says, there's no real Treaty 6, is there? And my brother said, yeah, yes there is. No, like really, is there really a Treaty 6? He said, yeah. He said, come to our band office. We have a copy of the document on our wall. Oh, really? He said. My brother said, yeah, there is a document. So this is part of the Treaty 6 document. Just to show people, because I'm going to hopefully be presenting this to non-First Nation treaty people as well. And I want them to know that this is a live document. It's living today. Next slide. So who is this treaty between? This treaty is between the British Crown and First Nation people of Treaty 6 territory. Treaty 1 to 11, between the British Crown and those treaty areas. Treaty 1 to 11. Okay, this is not a treaty between First Nations and Canada, or the provinces and territories. Got to get that straight. Okay, a lot of people think that our treaty is between First Nations and Canada. It is not. Leaders of territories and provinces, they happen to think that the treaties involve them somehow. I guess it does, but they are not to negotiate a treaty. That is not their business. So they need to get that straight. And just keep that in mind, that it's between First Nations and the Crown, the British Crown. Okay? So what led to Treaty 6? The disappearance of the buffalo, which caused widespread starvation and hardship among First Nation people, and was one of the main contributing factors to signing Treaty 6. The smallpox epidemic. Indigenous people were helpless against these new sicknesses, which devastated their populations. Indigenous people needed modern medicine that the settlers had. With treaties in place, land would be set aside for Indigenous people that settlers could not take over. The Redcoats, the RCMP, would provide protection against the Americans who had no regard for our traditional laws and were destroying the Blackfoot people, using bad whiskey as trade for furs. A small force of Northwest Mounted Police came and pushed the Americans back south. This example of power impressed the Indigenous people. And of course, word got around that these Northwest Mounted Police, they were powerful and they were respected. They had the backing of the British Army, I guess. So, with the buffalo disappearing, the Indigenous people would have to learn how to farm. Some were in favor of this, some were not. Some were saying, no, protect our buffalo, and we'll be okay. Others were saying, our buffalo are gone, we gotta learn how to farm. Cows and plows, folks, cows and plows. So, the way of life that Indigenous people knew for generations was disappearing, and the leaders of the day had to act quickly. So keep that in mind as well. There was a lot of separation there, and the leaders of the day had to think ahead. Okay, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen as we go along? We have to think of our children. We have to think of our grandchildren. So that was the tough decisions that they had to make. Next slide. For the Crown and the Government of Canada, what was their motivation? Well, they were building a railroad. The workers were running into warriors who wouldn't let them continue further west without a treaty in place. So they were running into warriors in Saskatchewan, in Alberta as well. The surveyors were having a bit of trouble because our ancestors were saying, no, you're not going any further, not unless we talk. Telegraph line surveyors were running into the same problem. The warriors were telling them, you're not going any further. So the Battle of Little Bighorn had happened in the States in 1875. This is important to note. And the Crown wanted to avoid a similar situation happening up in Canada. So they were eager to get treaties in place so that there was no bloodshed. Next slide. Okay, let's go to Fort Carlton, August 19th, 1876. In August of 1876, arrangements were made with the British Crown representatives and the First Nation leaders of the territory to begin negotiations for negotiating Treaty 6. The territory to be negotiated stretched across much of what now is Alberta and Saskatchewan, 120,000 square miles. The location of the first negotiation would be Fort Carlton. Actually, it was just a little ways from Fort Carlton. It was out on a little rise. Okay, next slide. So this is a little bit mixed up here. This is Chief Sweetgrass's profile. And he was part of the Fort Pitt. He was the main chief at Fort Pitt. He was born in 1815 and died January 1877. Chief Sweetgrass was the main chief at Fort Pitt treaty negotiations. A well-respected chief, Cree leader, who led his people the best he could through a time of incredible change. Sweetgrass converted to the Catholic religion in 1870. Sweetgrass was a good friend and ally of Big Bear. Faced with starvation and disease, Sweetgrass and his people were desperate for support, and as a result, he was influential in getting an agreement for Treaty 6. In January 1877, however, Sweetgrass would die after being accidentally shot. Next slide. Here's a very important thing that happened right at the beginning of Treaty 6 negotiations. Once all the parties had arrived at Fort Carlton, the two main chiefs, Takakuk and Stoassis, invited all the commissioners to attend that white ceremony amongst the more than 2,000 First Nation people who were witness to this historic moment. Lieutenant Governor, uh, Lieutenant Governor Morris smoked the peace pipe with the chiefs that day. And it is said that the commissioners weren't aware of the significance of the pipe ceremony. And that once the ceremony was done, all those that took part could only speak truthful and be fair. Treaty 6 would now have a spirit, making it sacred. Once you do that, once you smoke a pipe, you give something spirit. When it is said that Treaty 6 has a spirit, this is what is meant by that. A lot of people don't understand that actual treaty. It has a spirit. And we are obligated as treaty people to protect that spirit of Treaty 6, Treaty 1 to 11. We need to protect it and respect it, sure. To this day, part of our pre-tradition is that we start any important talks or event with a pipe ceremony. That didn't just start the Treaty 6 negotiations, it goes back thousands of years, pipe ceremonies. Okay? So, very symbolic, pipe ceremony to start Treaty 6 and gain that treaty spirit. Okay, next slide. Okay, there's Treaty 6 territory. There's Lac La Biche right up on the border of Alberta and Saskatchewan there. Well, not on the border, but close to it. Goes all the way over to, there's Prince Albert, Saskatoon, Edmonton. So a lot of people don't know what area Treaty 6 covers, and that's the area that it covers. Interesting thing is Heart Lake is supposed to be part of Treaty 6, but if you take a look, if you know the area, Lac La Biche, you can see it right there, Beaver Lake is right in that area, and Heart Lake is north of that. So Heart Lake should actually be part of Treaty 8, but my dad was saying that because of the landscape, the way that it was all kind of, they didn't want to go for Treaty 8, they didn't want to go all the way to Heart Lake. So they made it part of Treaty 6, even though it doesn't show. Next slide. There's a picture of Fort Carlton. Just by show of hands, how many people have visited Fort Carlton? Nice to see some hands. I am making a trip there this summer. I'm taking my kids, and we're going to go visit Fort Carlton. And hopefully go to the area where the treaty actually happened. Next slide. Who were the negotiators? The main negotiators for this treaty were Lieutenant Governor Alexander Morris, David Liard, James McKay, and William Christie, representing the Crown. For the First Nations, the main chiefs that handled negotiations at Fort Carlton were Chief Matakipo, Star Blanket, and Stolas's Big Child. Many other chiefs and headmen were present at these negotiations. However, Matakipo and Stolas's did the negotiations on behalf of the other leaders. So they would have councils after every day, and they would meet together, and Star Blanket and Big Child would kind of head the meetings. Okay, next slide. Okay, there's a picture of the main negotiators there. So on the left-hand side there are some other people in the picture, but on the left-hand side, seated is the Chakapu. On the right-hand side is Stolas's. Chief flying in a circle is in the middle, and Osu is standing on the left-hand side, and I believe his name is Mr. Huri. That's how you say his name. But anyways, I wanted the picture because of the two men there. Okay, so there's Alexander Morris. The other picture's on the right-hand side. He's on top left corner. James McKay. Liard in the bottom left. and Governor Christie, or not Governor Christie, Commissioner Christie as well. So those were the main negotiators. Okay, I don't know if anybody's seen any pictures of this, but these were the main negotiators. Next slide. So the role of the interpreters was crucial to Treaty 6 negotiators. Peter Erasmus, Reverend John Mackay, and Peter Bellenden had a very important job. Interpreting the terms of treaty back and forth between each party was a huge responsibility. What was interesting was the Crown assigned John Mackay and Peter Bellenden to the interpreting duties exclusively. However, Starr-Blanket and Big Child seemed to foresee this government move and summoned Peter Erasmus. Erasmus was well known and trusted in Indian country, and the chiefs wanted him to interpret for them. During the first introductions, nobody from the government party would acknowledge Erasmus. However, this soon changed when he proved his abilities. From then on, Erasmus became the main interpreter. So how Erasmus did this was he knew these other interpreters. He knew that one spoke Swampy Cree, and the other one was a soft-spoken man. The one that spoke Swampy Cree was the Reverend John Mackay, and Bellenden was a soft-spoken man. So the governor got up and spoke. He said, "Okay, Mr. Erasmus, you interpret that now." He said, "No." He said, "You have your hired men here. You go ahead. These two men can interpret." So John Mackay gets up and he starts speaking. And one of the chiefs gets up and says, I am not Swampy Cree. I do not speak Swampy Cree. He was also good at Soto. And he was mixing Soto in there as well. John Mackay was. He said, "I don't speak Soto." He said, "Have somebody come here and speak Plains Cree to me. That's what I understand." So John Mackay sat down. Now it's Peter Bellenden's turn. So he gets up and he starts speaking. There's more than 2,000 people gathered here. The ones in the back, he's trying to project his voice, and they can't hear him. Still, he keeps trying, and they're saying, "We can't hear you, we can't hear him," in the back. So, gives it a couple tries, and he says, "Okay, I'm done." Peter Erasmus gets up. He was a rather large man, and he had a booming voice. So he got up, and he took control from there. So he was the main interpreter after that, and it was kind of neat how he did that. Kind of a smart fellow. Next slide. There he is. That's Peter Erasmus, the main interpreter. How many people have read Buffalo Days and Nights? Please read this book. It's a beautiful book, and it's first-hand accounts of Peter Erasmus at the Treaty 6 negotiations, not to mention on buffalo hunts and stuff like that, all around the Whitefish Lake area and other areas as well. But it's a really good read. If you have a chance to, Buffalo Days and Nights, read that book. Next slide. That's the monument that stands at Fort Pitt, where Fort Pitt used to be. I guess that's what's left of Fort Pitt now, the monument. Okay, next slide. The Fort Pitt negotiations, September 7th, 1876. So we'll go to September 6th, 1876, the day prior to the Fort Pitt negotiations. The chiefs and headmen in attendance had the opportunity to speak to Peter Erasmus about the negotiations in Fort Carleton. Erasmus explained in detail all that happened in Fort Carleton, and how Starr-Blanket and Big Child negotiated the treaty talks for the negotiations or the nations in attendance. Pardon me. After hearing Treaty 6 was agreed to in Fort Carleton, The main chief of Fort Pitt, Sweetgrass, said, "If Atakagu and Stoasis, who are more knowledgeable than I am, accept, then I will accept on behalf of my people." All the other chiefs at Fort Pitt followed suit soon after. So, it was, again, this is written history. Oral history might say a little bit different, for sure, that there was some more discussion that happened. So, that's the written history. Okay? September 7th, the governor sat with the chiefs, the headmen, and members of their nations to explain the terms of Treaty 6 and to answer questions. When he was done, he asked if there was any questions. There was silence for a while. One of the chiefs got up and said, "It's okay to speak. Now is your time." There was silence. It appeared that the discussions the day prior was sufficient for the chiefs. The only request really asked was by Chief Pagan of Whitefish, Titfish Lake. Pagan requested a large reserve, a general reserve, for those who couldn't take part in negotiations, so that they could have land for themselves as well. The governor told him he couldn't agree to it. And I don't know, must be a few people that remember talk about the request for a large reserve that First Nation people could live on. It was supposed to be huge. But anyways, that's what Pagan was asking for, and the governor said he couldn't do it. Next slide. Notable absence at Fort Pitt was Big Bear. Big Bear didn't attend for a couple of reasons. Firstly, he was part of a very important hunt at the time. As I said, food was getting scarce, and he had to be part of a hunt for his people. The second reason he wasn't invited by the commissioners to be part of the negotiations signing, he wasn't invited. He wasn't invited. The commissioners sent people out onto the plains to find the other chiefs, but when it came to Big Bear, they didn't try very hard to go and find him. So he didn't attend. And they knew that he had displeasure with the Treaty 6. So it might have been a case of, well, okay, I don't want to deal with this guy, so I'm just not going to summon him to come and talk with us. A sad note regarding Chief Sweetgrass, again, I had mentioned this. He was given a gun as a gift at the end of the Fort Pitt negotiations. So it was supposed to be in November that his brother-in-law were expecting the gun. The gun went off and killed Chief Sweetgrass. Okay, next slide. Those who opposed. Again, there's Chief Big Bear on the left-hand side, Chief Poundmaker on the right-hand side. Next slide. Chief Big Bear, Chief Little Pine, Chief Beardy, Poundmaker, and others were opposed to Treaty 6. Big Bear, Little Pine, and Beardy were notably absent at Treaty 6 negotiations. Poundmaker was not yet a chief, and when he opposed at Fort Carlton, he was seen as a rebel and a troublemaker, not only by the commissioner, but by the chiefs that agreed with the treaties. Some commonalities amongst the chiefs who opposed were they wanted the buffalo to be protected. What was left of the buffalo, they wanted them to be protected. There was disagreement over the land, the way that the land was being distributed and spoken for. Okay? Inadequate assistance for the First Nation people. The assistance that they were wanting in place, it was inadequate for our people. So that was a big reason why they opposed it. These early chiefs met in 1884. It's very important to note in 1884 to organize implementing full provisions of Treaty 6. However, before they were able to meet with government and the rest of the First Nations, the Northwest Rebellion broke out, so they were never able to get together and talk about this and with the government to implement full provisions. Full provisions would have been quite a thing for Treaty 6. Okay, next slide. Here's a quote by Chief Big Bear. It was not given to us to have the rope around our necks. Instead, Musqueam meant that he had no wish to surrender his freedom under great pressure from his people. Big Bear would sign an adhesion in 1882. Okay? So there was confusion. Rope around our necks. The governor was thinking, well, okay, he's afraid of the law, and he's going to get hung. And what Big Bear meant was, okay, you're confining me. I live in freedom. I go where I want. I do what I want to do. You all of a sudden are going to put stipulations on what I can do and what I can't do. He didn't like that. So that's what he meant by that famous quote. Next slide. Chief Beardy. Chief Beardy didn't attend Fort Carlton negotiations, stating that what the government was providing for assistance was not adequate and that the buffalo needed to be protected. Beardy did sign an adhesion to Treaty 6 on August 28, 1876 at Duck Lake. So, something that Beardy did was he met the commissioners before they got to Fort Carlton around Duck Lake, and he said, okay, I had a vision that we should have the Treaty 6 negotiations at Duck Lake. And Commissioner Morris said, okay, what is written is that he didn't really trust Chief Beardy. So he said, no, we're going to have it at Fort Carlton. The adhesion was signed at Duck Lake anyway, so Chief Beardy kind of got his way there. This man had spiritual powers. A very powerful man spiritually. That's important to note. Chief Beardy. Next slide. Chief Boutmaker. This is a very famous quote as well. He said, "This is our land. It's not a piece of pemmican to be cut off and given in little pieces back to us. It is ours, and we will take what we want." It was a very strong statement. He made that statement at Fort Carlton. Next slide. So there were celebrations at Treaty 6, of course. Two of the celebrations that occurred during the first meeting at Fort Carlton were done by both parties at different times. The first occurrence was when Lieutenant Governor Morris arrived at Fort Carlton with an escort of Northwest Mounted Police dressed in their red serge on beautiful horses. After Morris's arrival at Northwest Mounted, the Northwest Mounted Police marching band marched through the middle of the Indigenous people's encampment of 250 or more teepees, to the delight and the horror of Indigenous people who had never seen or heard such spectacle. So you can imagine our ancestors watching this marching band with cymbals and horns and different kinds of drums, making different sounds, seeing it for the first time and hearing that sound. So some were scared and some were just like, wow, that would be nice. So the second occurrence happened after the sacred pipe ceremony was done at Fort Carlton. Our ancestors began to sing and dance in celebration of the ceremony, and then Treaty 6 negotiations would commence. What a spectacle it must have been. So some of the Muniawak, they probably never saw our people dancing and the songs and the drumming that would happen. So there was a great celebration, dancing, singing. So the two cultures, right, on either side. Here we have Muniau marching band, and on the other side we have our ancestors singing and dancing these songs. So it must have been pretty interesting. Next slide. I wanted to bring this up to the depth of a plow. That's one of the treaty agreements, right? One of the agreements that wasn't honored by the Crown was the agreement to share this land's resources to the depth of a plow. Anything below that would belong to the First Nation people of this land. This is written in Treaty 6 documents, and this is one of the issues that many First Nation leaders throughout the years have pushed to get the government to recognize and to honor. All the development done below the depth of a plow on this land by the two governments throughout the years was done without the consent and involvement of the First Nations people. Share, share, share. I'm not talking about Facebook, I'm talking about us sharing with the non-First Nation people, our other treaty brothers and sisters. Share our resources. Share, share that way. Okay? Next slide. Here's another nice quote. I picked this up and I thought I'm going to stick this in here. It's really beautiful. So let's carry the story forward. If the legends fall silent, who will teach the children of our ways? Ladies and gentlemen, we have an obligation to our children and our grandchildren to carry the legends forward. We have to tell them about Treaty 6. We have to tell them how sacred it is. Okay? We need to carry it forward. Next slide. That was about Chief Camp George, by the way. And in conclusion, please keep in mind that this can be seen as a good starting point, and that there's much more to learn about Treaty 6. Treaty 6 includes the Sioux, the Dene, the Saulteaux, and the Cree people of this territory. There are many great reference books and historians that can be utilized. As I said, Peter Erasmus's Buffalo Days and Nights, Sheldon Krasowski's No Surrender. Nice book. That's a good book if you have a chance to read that. It's called The Land Remains Indigenous. No Surrender, The Land Remains Indigenous. Historians like Eric Tatusis, who I believe is going to be here within 3 days. Yeah. Very interesting man, and I love listening to him. Direct descendant of Chief Poundmaker, by the way. I hope that this presentation has been helpful to you in understanding the origins of Treaty 6. Keep in mind, remember, we are all treaty people, and we all have an obligation to protect it and keep its spirit alive.